Okay,
We're here.
we are here. Where
We're
are
live.
you?
Are you watching? Are you watching for
Yes, I am,
comments?
honey. Yes.
So I am not allowed to, or should
I
I?
mean, it depends on how you feel today.
I'm not sure how I feel today.
Well, you look
I actually,
lovely.
I just wanted to check my teeth. I just ate a date and I was afraid the skin was stuck on there somewhere.
No, honey, I would
So.
not let you be out here looking crazy. I would have told you. So, honey, happy hump day.
Yes,
Happy
it's Wednesday.
Wednesday. Happy MBE day. That's
Yes,
what we should make Wednesday now, MBE day.
I love it. Yeah. But every day should be MBE day. Don't you agree?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Being
for
conscious
like
of our mind, our
in
body, and our
our
energy.
yes, but MBE as in Yolanda and Tiffany. Hello.
Oh, yeah.
We're
That's
here
fair.
every Wednesday.
Uh-huh.
What was I going to tell you? So, first of all, what is so interesting that you and I always talk about in the background, whichever topics come up for us, whatever we discuss, Tiffany and I do pay attention to that thing, like whether it was being empathic or mind mapping, and now this week relationships. We do it because it's part of the process, but also
Hmm.
because we end up also sharing our personal things with our Patreons.
Hmm.
When I tell you, relationship was like right here, up front and center, like this week. Yeah. And all I could think of is like, wow, thanks, Tiff.
Yeah, I feel good about it because I feel like that's been happening to me with all the other topics.
Uh-huh.
And I kind of got a little bit of a reprieve
Yeah. You
to
passed
some
the
degree.
baton to me.
Yeah, I just waited it a little bit more on your side this time around.
Yeah. So I just
You're
wanted to,
welcome
yeah, thanks so much. Oh,
because you're
you're
going to
so
get so much
sweet.
wisdom out of it.
You're so sweet.
Thank you. I try.
No,
I
but I
try.
did. And that's one of the things I thought was interesting that we could even talk about today. Like really the balancing of the in relationships and the give and take and the back and forth and the, even the yin and yang, whatever. And it makes me think of again how Libra we talked about in our energy update for the month, looking at the scales, like not just looking at those scales in terms of balance, but really like how there is this other component, that has consideration when we're in relationship. Like it's
Sure.
not just about us. There is the other side of the scale, which is
Right.
another person.
And then also too, we talk about trying evolution is going to happen regardless, and it happens within the relationship, but it's also happening in the individual. So we have our own skills too that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis as well, and
Yeah.
a moment-to-moment basis, and sometimes it's not even just about the relationship we're experiencing, but also our own personal relationships to relationship.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
And that's part of I think the hard thing of like really taking ownership of, I think for a lot of us, because we do get so caught in just like our view and like they're wrong and it's
yeah,
all them and they're crazy and they're all of these things. But it really takes a lot of ownership to also be able to look at what are you contributing? What
hmm,
is the part you're playing in this? Because it's not one-sided. No matter how much you're annoyed by the other person, you are still contributing somehow, some way.
that's right. Yeah. And
So,
being annoyed by that person, again, is what we talked about, triggers, right? And triggers are messengers to us that something's up with our field and something's going on there that we need to look at, because otherwise the relationship or that moment of existing with somebody and in some circumstances would be, balanced.
mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that came up for me about this week too, that I didn't get to share in the Dear Diary because it happened after the fact,
Hmm.
was really this illumination in relationship of like the uncomfortable conversations, right? Like where we all say like, oh, I want to be friends and be open and let's be honest. But let's be honest, it's not always comfortable. And people often get real upset if you're too honest. But
Yeah.
the beauty of that is, and what was really coming up is, even though that can be uncomfortable and difficult, this past week for me, the good part of it is it takes us out of just responding from ego and what's unsaid. So, like we have like these adult temper tantrums and react from our emotion, and like can be really not that nice when we're not expressing how we really feel. It comes out in our behavior if we don't actually talk about it,
Yeah.
So it just dawned on me, like, that's a good reminder for everyone. Sometimes it's worth being uncomfortable in conversation instead of reacting through the behavior of what you're too uncomfortable to say.
Agreed. And it's interesting to watch it, like, once first to see yourself doing it, and then maybe being able to observe yourself making a choice between the two. Like, am I going to make this ego decision right now, or am I going to do the right thing, which is uncomfortable, and then see how it plays out with somebody else? And when you do choose that second one, to see what they choose,
right?
Because they could choose to accept that and be adult about it and go through the discomfort in order to diffuse a situation, or if they're going to perpetuate it, because if they perpetuate it, it gives your ego the option to jump on board too. It's almost like a train ticket. Be like, all right, I'm letting my ego jump on this one. Here's the ticket to get on the train. You're going to come with me. And that's a choice too. Like, do you take it and go, or do you stand in that truth over that decision you made to be truthful and to be uncomfortable,
I'm glad you say that, because it's not like a one-time thing, right? I mean, like, say you and I are having an exchange and right away I make the choice that I'm not going to be in my ego, but then you trigger me. I have to choose again. And then you trigger me again, and I have to keep like constantly making the choice to not respond without Buddha in my mouth.
Yeah, it's hard.
Just really quick, hi to Mo. Glad that your class was canceled so that you could be here with us. If you want to share anything about relationships, your experiences, your thoughts, questions, anything, throw it out there. And
please do. Yolanda's going to read them because I'm not allowed to do it right now.
No.
I had technical issues last week, like using my brain and watching two things at one time. There was actual smoke coming out of my ears.
I know, that was hilarious. Yeah. So anything anyone wants to share, we really appreciate it, because we love to hear your own thoughts and your questions, and it gets our brains going too. Yeah. So what were you going to say, honey?
Me?
Yeah.
I think that was pretty much it. Just like watching other people's reactions, whether they're going to step into ego and react, and if you're going to jump on board with that as well. I've witnessed that. And I've been proud of myself, because normally my ego wants to take over right away and get insecure and get hurt, or get all like pissy pants about it. Be like, oh my God, why are you acting like this? But that's my ego too. And so I had to like know what was right, and know like, have a little bit of foresight of which one I choose is going to lead me down one of these paths, and which is the path that I want to go down, and that's an investment of your energy, because you're going to put energy into one of those, and then that's where you're going to end up. And if that's not where you wanted to end up, you're going to have to expend more energy to come back and then go back to where you did.
Well, the thing too, I think a lot of times we don't like to admit that even our response, or how we deliver things, how we may communicate, could be triggering to the other person as well, and then we get annoyed that they're bothered by our delivery. And so then there's like this whole battle of, not seeing, just like passing each other, and either like, what do you need, a mediator, a translator, all kinds of things.
Right.
But like also, taking into consideration, like, not only are you being triggered, but what you are saying, even if you don't think it's, it doesn't matter. That other person could be processing in a way that they don't like your delivery. And you have to be able to own that too.
Right. Owning it. I like that.
Own it. I don't like it. No. No,
owning it, and what we talk about, responsibility,
totally.
It's been a pervasive topic through every single topic we've touched upon, is the responsibility of your own energy and your mind mapping. And, all of that is responsible for what's going to happen in your physical body and in your physical experience.
Yeah. And, even in the terms of relationship too, I think one of the biggest challenges I hear again and again, like with, in sessions or just things like this, a lot of people have a hard time opening their mind to possibility beyond like their list. You know, like a lot of people get so rigid about like, these are the rules you have to play by to be in relationship with me. And it's like, who the hell is going to check all those boxes?
Right. Right.
Sometimes we get so rigid, and we do sometimes, again, like have to take the responsibility and ownership for what our own boundaries are and what our own limitations may be, and all of these different things. I mean, man, we're something.
Yeah. And how those things would be holding us back. Hi, Michelle. How those things might be holding us back.
Right. Yeah. Because they do. I mean, I just recently, like maybe like a month ago, someone called me, and they're trying to be open for a relationship, like opening their space to a relationship. And I was like, oh, that's lovely, you know? And then she tells me, yes, and he has to be this, that, this, that. Like she listed off like 20 things of what he had to be. And I was like, he has to be? Like, just like, is there any like give in that, you know?
Yeah.
And she was like, why? I should be able to ask, because that whole like law of attraction thing, right?
Oh, I was just going to bring that up.
Yes.
Stay tuned next week.
Yeah, we're going to talk about law of attraction next week. But she was like, I should be able to ask for exactly what I want and call it in and do. And it's like, but you're also restricting exactly what you want. And 9 times out of 10, we don't even know what the heck we need.
Stop getting in my brain and saying the words.
Sorry.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So there's that.
There's that. We have a question. You ready for this?
Oh, yeah. Bring it on.
Okay. Can avoidance be considered the high road to not engage?
No.
And there you have it.
Scene.
You want to elaborate? Yeah, and scene. So what do you think about that, babe?
No, I think avoidance is definitely an ego symptom, because we're avoiding the hard things, like plain and simple right there. I mean, there is a degree of saying what you need to say and getting to the point you need to get yourself expressed. And if that's not being received, then it's just done. But make sure that those boundaries are clear, and make sure that on your part, you've done what you can, you've did your best, and you've explained that, expressed it, and put an end to it. Then it's just being like, I did the best I could. But just completely stepping away and not clearing air, the energy of that thing is still going to exist there between whatever the two entities are. So
right.
That feeling, avoidance leaves a palpable sense in the midst of that.
And leaves a real connection, like things
it does,
and and it reminds me of like kind of what we started with. Sometimes we have to be willing to be uncomfortable to show up and have conversations that we don't necessarily want to have. But what it does is it prevents us from then dealing with the reacting from the behavior or the emotion that is like triggered by what we didn't express or say. So I think, and especially in our relationships, I feel like we owe it to ourselves and other people to be honest. Like, you know, whether it is, hey, I'm showing up to say, I don't want to talk to you anymore. But, you know, just, But
the reason why I could say that like with such a stance is because avoidance is my number one ego feature, like 100%, and especially in relationships. And what I've learned about myself and about that specifically is that I've lost a lot of opportunity because of it. I've lost a lot of wisdom, or not that I lost it, but it was there for me to potentially have gained from it, and I chose not to. And I don't regret anything, but I look back and I'm like, well, that's a shame. I had so many opportunities, but I chose avoidance. And if it's not a lingering sense of something still between you and whoever that relationship is, it's going to be a lingering sense between you and yourself, because there's something there that was meant to teach you or to have an experience, and it wasn't achieved.
Yeah. And I had the same thing. I mean, it's interesting thinking of it now, because of our conversation we're having. I didn't consider it avoidance when I did it. I just would shut down. Like I would just be done. Like, I don't have anything to say with you. Just goodbye and adios. That was great. Like there's nothing to talk about. But I mean, that was avoiding in a lot of ways. But what I've learned through this process of like trying things differently and really examining the effects of my behaviors and my choices is that when we do avoid, yes, things still fester, they linger, even though we could try to deny, like, oh yeah, I'm done with that. If it was left unresolved, there's still this part of you in the background that wonders and like questions and all of it. Like, just get it done. Just,
Yeah.
Just show up. And again, it might be 5, 10, 30 minutes of discomfort, but at least you gave yourself the opportunity to express, hopefully respectfully, whatever it is that you wanted to express. Now, listen, I'm not going to go back and forth with somebody all day long. You know what I mean? Like, if I am expressing and not avoiding and the person on the other end wants to like then go back and forth, no. I'm only going to give you like 3 rounds and then.
Yeah, that brings us back to, the self-exploration thing that we're working on, is sitting with yourself and getting an understanding of what your needs are, or what your ego is in the way, or what your perspective is, and clear that up. You got to clear your side of the street up, and then you can meet that person. And as long as you're clear and it's still not being received by them, at least you've done that. But you have to get right with yourself before you step into it. And the other thing, if this is kind of eluding people what we're talking about, or how to make that change, think about every situation you avoid, or whatever else it is that you do as your defense mechanism, or whatever we'll call it. Think of them as little like obstacles in your path, and if you keep doing it, they build up, and it's things that we're going to approach them at some point in time in one way or another. So why not put that blockade in there,
Right.
And why not train yourself to deal with it? Because down the line, it'll show up again somehow.
And it's like giving you an opportunity to examine why you choose to avoid, So it's kind of like even what Tiffany and I said, like we both had that thing. And even when it comes up now, like, listen, there was a few times this week I absolutely wanted to go back into that pattern, but I really had to sit with myself and go like, wait, like, why do I want to avoid? And who cares if it's uncomfortable? And I think in this too, we also have to say in relationship, one of the things that gets us tangled up a lot of times is we think like, okay, well, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to show up and be whatever I say. And then if the person doesn't reciprocate, or they respond in a way that you don't like, then all of a sudden, you're like blowing it up. You're so mad. Now here comes your ego. Like, back to what we said like 10 minutes ago, you have to keep making the choice to be in like your own integrity, your own truth. Try not to be triggered. It's a like constant. You have to make that choice throughout the conversations you're having.
Yeah. Do we have another question? That was such a good question, by the way.
Clearly. That was really good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi to Kristen. And our next comment is, I like that. My ex is toxic and she randomly reaches out. I refuse to respond. What you got for that one, Cookie?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think.
Was it ended? Was it ended appropriately on one end, and they're just?
I know these people, so I'm gonna say this, but because I'm not gonna say anything outside of what they share. So I'll relate it to my own experience. Something like this is. Sometimes, like, again, like we may end situations and one of the two halves is not happy with the way that it ended. And like, sometimes it's the case, you just need to take space so people can work through whatever they need to work through. You can come back and have, like a rational conversation, an adult conversation. But then there are some instances where some relationships, depending on how it ended, you might not want to talk to them ever again. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean like it doesn't mean you don't forgive or you haven't just let it go. There just may be a part of you like where I've had enough of that frequency.
Yeah.
I'm tapping out. Like, I'm good. Like I have nothing else for that.
Right. And again, that's coming back to like ensuring that you did your due diligence of clearing out your space, and you're okay with being like, I did my due diligence to do what I needed to do here, and we're done. And I mean, there is a place for that for sure, because somebody else hasn't worked through their stuff. And I was working somewhere, and there was a toxic relation, there was a toxic person, and she was trying to infiltrate everybody. And one of the workers there, like, got a text message and was going, like, got really revved up and was just like, oh, and then I felt the drama trying to pull me in. I'm like, mm-mm. And so I told her, I was like, say what needs to be said. And then just like in a mature manner, just being like, this is what it's going to do. And then I told her, like, block the contact, and I could see her thinking like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that, because part of the ego wants to keep it going. It wants to get fired up. And I was like, just block it. I'm like, cause that it's not, she's not going to give up, and it's not going to be anything worth your energy, because clearly you're investing energy there that it doesn't belong there, and it's not behooving anybody. So I told her just block it. And she came back later and she's like, thank you for counseling me through that and telling me to make that decision, or recommending it. And she's like, I really it made me feel so much better. And, once we recognize when our ego is being pulled into something and we can take a step back and do something different, then we're like, oh, wow, I didn't realize it could be this way,
Yeah. I have to say, for me, it does depend, because I tend to I will have conversations and show up sometimes even when I don't personally want to. But what I recognize is sometimes people, they need it. You know what I mean? Like, someone else may need the closure that you don't need. And if I was in a relationship with you, I like to think I had enough respect for you that I can show up to hold space to at least listen and acknowledge whatever it is you have to say. But if in that exchange, the person gets just attacking or something like this, like, no, I'm not going to sit there while someone attacks my space and does all of these things. But, but then there's also, it really is so situational to me, because sometimes I can just see the person is just hurt. Someone's hurt and they don't know how to process their feeling. Mm-hmm. They don't know how to process their emotion. And that, okay, I can understand that. But yeah,
it's a good point.
Really situational.
It is situational, and it's a really good point. It's situational and it requires discernment.
Mm-hmm. As all things do. Mm-hmm. So what about all of you? Have you guys had any relationship stuff coming up this week or recently? Any patterns you notice in your own relationships, things you get tripped up in, you get stuck in? Any thoughts or ideas? It's interesting. Tiffany and I were just talking about as well, like how Venus is going to go retrograde in a couple of days. We're in Libra season. The full moon is in Taurus at the end of the month. In Libra and Taurus are both ruled by Venus, planet of love and balance and beauty and aesthetics. So point being, we are in relationship energy right now. You're in
it. That's right.
Good,
and if you want more information, go to the Patreon.
Yeah. We did a whole
hour
long, about the energy of the month. Mm-hmm. But so back to you really quick, Honey Pie. Anything strike you about relationships this week? Our last discussion.
Yeah, I won't get too deep in it. I shared on my Dear Diary about a realization I had about relationships in my life with friends and how they serve me in different ways. Mm-hmm. And, if one isn't serving me or it feels like it's disserving me at a time, I recognized how it's not so much the relationship, but what I need at the time, so recognizing what, every relationship is very different. And just because you're not getting your needs met in one, it doesn't mean that it's a bad relationship. It just means take a step back, look what's going on with you and how that relationship is interplaying in your life based on what you're going through. So that was an interesting thing for me to take a step back and see oh, okay, this isn't about our relationship right now. It's about me and what I'm going through and what I'm seeing coming out of each relationship, and what I also see is benefiting me or not benefiting me at the time. And again, that comes back to discernment and choosing where am I going to waste my time and my energy right now based on a recognition of self-observation and currently what's happening with me.
That's funny. You just reminded me of how we were talking earlier about how, I said how someone had this rigid list of the man they wanted to attract in their life. But, I think a lot of people do that with friends too. I've heard a lot of people say, I need to, like a lot of times we'll say like, oh, I want to meet like-minded individuals. But some people are very rigid in that if you don't share the same interest as them, or you don't agree like across the board with them, they have no interest in being your friend. And I think that's a really, that's interesting to me, because I think about all of my friendships. I mean, God, it's so diverse. And like, yeah, we have core commonalities and that, like, maybe we're respectful people. I don't know. But I have friends that have all kinds of interests. Not all of us agree, but it's those kind of relationships where the people are so different than us that
Mm-hmm.
I think are the most interesting. Because, I mean, they stretch you. And
Yes.
you start to develop interest or learn about things that you wouldn't have otherwise. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
love of course, the connections to like being able to talk to you about like ghosts. And then like my friend Mo, I have been bothering for years talking about aliens. So like, yeah, I love like my different connections and what
Yeah.
I'm able to talk to, like different friends, different relationships serve different needs. But
Yeah.
some people try to keep them all the same.
Yeah.
All the
Well,
same.
I went to a business school. Okay. All we did was business there.
Yeah.
And my a lot of my friends around me here we went to the same business school. So it just happened like, this is where my friend group kind of originated and grew out from. And I am their beloved token hippie of the group, even though like I do math and science and that's you know what they know too, and they're educated, and it's kind of what our daily lives revolve around.
Yeah.
I come in and I'm like, hey guys, let's talk about this stuff. This is what I'm doing. And while it's stuff that's all brand new to them or like kind of weird or out there, they embrace it, and we talk about stuff. And whether they believe in some of the stuff I believe in or not, like we still respect each other, and it's still fun to kind of talk about stuff and have conversations of like, well, what if this is really actually true, and it kind of grows everybody a little bit. I mean, my friends weren't into yoga when we first met. I wasn't even as deep into yoga, and I've gone down the path, and they came and did class, and like, just getting into like, they stepped into yoga for stretching, right? Yoga is way much more than stretching. And part of the things that the door opened up was that now, you never know what you're going to get. They came to yoga to stretch, but I opened the door to all these other things that could be, and like slowly leads them down another path of possible interest, and if not, they're just like, oh, our little token hippie, there she goes again, but they still love me no less, and I love them too.
That's so funny. Mo said that's how we grow. And that's absolutely true.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're reminding me of is what came up in our last conversation. That class that I was teaching that ended last month.
Yeah.
There was a module in there where it came up about this. The whole thing was really about the connection, the sameness in all of us, like that energy, that oneness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how, beneath the surface of like all of this, our costumes, our masks, the roles we play, everything, there's that common core frequency, energy thing, whatever you want to call it, that we're all of the same source, the same thing. And that's really like where we can relate. So I think we did talk about this last time, but it's
Mm-hmm.
like, we do try to relate through our same interests. Like, oh, you're interested in yoga, me too, let's be friends. Oh, like golfing, me too, let's be friends. And
Mm-hmm.
then we tend to miss out on opportunities of meeting fascinating people or getting into relationship with people that we think we have nothing in common with. But the thing I've been playing with in these last few weeks is recognizing that inner sameness, right? So when
Mm-hmm.
we come out of our ego and I look past, okay, she has freckles and she has like wavy hair over there, her
You
eyes
judging
look
me on my
blue.
freckles?
I think they're adorable. She has green eyes and like baby doll pink nail polish and all this. Okay, like I don't know about our sameness. Oh, wait. But then there's that inner light. There's this like resonance between us that's so far beneath what I see with my eyes, and so far beneath like whatever your interest may be, there's something that connects us. And I think once we start identifying that, like truly, it kind of takes us out of a lot of our BS, you know, and it opens us up to the possibility of all kinds of relationship once we just see that we're already.
Yeah. I love that you brought that up, because if we can't understand, if it's hard to process that idea that we're connected by a source or a light or whatever you want to call it, or maybe there's common interests that lie beneath the surface that we have to uncover, there's still a very easy commonality that we could recognize, is that as humans, we're all seeking something, and we're also all suffering. So by that alone, we're connected, you know?
And even I think about, like, look at, if you see someone on the news, something happened to someone, if you walk down the street and you see a little kid snotty-nosed crying, like something in you is like, oh, you don't have to know the person. If you see something happen to somebody and you are just like, oh my God, it's like automatic compassion hits. Like, oh my God, I have to help. Oh my God, what do I do? That's because they're a part of you. We feel each other, like literally we feel each other. You walk in a room, you feel the tension. You don't have to know those people. You can feel the tension. Right. Because we're connected. Like we have so much evidence of our connectivity, and we're just like, no, that sounds like woo-woo mumbo jumbo.
I know. I have to share this story with you because I just remembered it and it fits so perfectly.
Okay.
So this week, one of my coworkers brought his daughter to work. And when they were leaving, I squatted down to give her a hug. She's this tiny little like teacup of a person. And I squatted down to hug her, and she's like, we both have dark curly hair. Maybe we can be friends. I'm like, maybe? I'm like, no way, we already are. I died for a moment, but I was just like, oh, that's the cutest thing I've ever heard. But she is 4.5 years old, and she noted that we both have curly hair. And to her, that was a commonality where she was like, we should be friends based on that.
Yeah. I think it's just like what you said, like we're all seeking, I think we all seek connection, and we're all seeking like belonging and commonality, and like, oh, there's my tribe, there's my group, here I'm seen, here I'm understood, here I'm loved, here I'm accepted. Yeah. And then again, it's like, that's, I mean, fudge.
Yeah. You already have it.
You have it.
Planet.
Yes, the entire planet.
Everything.
And I mean, yeah, it does sound kind of like, ooh, but once you do things like, we could say like energy work, right? Do you have moments where, and we did talk about this, but you connect with people energetically, and I'm telling you, you feel like you can tell, like, oh, it's like you're one with that person. Like you have no judgment about them. You don't even care what they look like. You don't care. It's like you just literally feel that essence of them that is so far beyond ego, appearance, choice, anything. And you have like this deep compassion because you do. You know,
try it and find out.
Yeah, like you experience what it is that like, oh man, we are more than this, and oh wow, we really are connected. It's phenomenal. Listen, if you want to know, we'll attune you and you can practice yourself.
Yeah. But even if you want to know, I mean, it's the same idea of like, if you have a child, that connectedness you feel to them, you know, like if your child gets hurt, you hurt, or a lover, you know, like you feel for them if they're going through something. It reminds me of the studies that they've done on twins, who one could be like on the other side of the world and something could happen to them and the other one feels it too.
Right.
There's very evidential ways to experience what we're talking about without having to become Reiki attuned.
But there's something else too, reminds me of, it came through in a channeling one time. It came through in relation to lineage and lineage healing, but it applies to this too. So I can't remember what it's called, but it's more talked about in quantum theory and quantum physics. It's like, you know, like
quantum entanglement.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, I was coming through this channeling of like this whole idea of like, if we heal, like anything I heal in my space is by default going to heal those same energies, like in my mom and in my grandmother and like down the line, because anything you do over here is going to have the effect to that same energy wherever it may be. It doesn't matter where it is. But I think it's the same with us, just like the 100th monkey or, you know, anything. Like if there's a shift in me, it's going to cause a shift in everyone and everything around me. And now Tiffany and I have shifted. That's going to amplify the shift that occurs. And domino.
I love talking about the lineage stuff because I mean it's relationship, right? It's familial. And I think we're always trying to heal the sins of the father to some degree, right? Because and not just fathers but mothers also, and just people, predecessors before us,
right?
The predecessors that have like passed down, you know, the circumstances that we grew into, and unless we made a conscious decision to step out of that and try something new or see something different, you know, it's those are what have conditioned our behaviors, and those are what have conditioned us to relate the way we do relate. And if you don't step back and recognize like this isn't suitable or fitting right now in my life or what I'm doing, then you have that option and that choice and the responsibility to change it.
But it comes back to like what we said even last week about romantic relationships. Oftentimes we always want to point the finger and change the other person. And in this case, we often want to change our relatives, whether it's like my mom, I want to change her. I want to change my dad. I want to change my brother. I want to change my sister because they're all nuts, right? But the truth is like, that's where that whole thing comes in of like, you do the healing right here. You do heal you. Work through your judgment, work through your own triggers, work through how you perceive these things, work through your own hurt, whatever the layers are that are in relation to these people, heal that in yourself. It's really like the key. You're never gonna be able to like force healing on them or change on them, or so all you're gonna do is like hold yourself like captive to this upset of what they're not. And the more you can like accept and change and transform here, you may even see subtle changes in them just by default. I mean, I've seen it happen.
Me too. And that's what we talked about last week. I think we touched on it when, you know, we were talking about leading by example.
Right.
And sometimes it's not a subtle shift. Sometimes it's a huge resistance. Sometimes a huge violent resistance. And then it'll force you to choose if I'm going to let my ego take this or not. I am to blame for that to some degree too, you know, like just showing up differently sometimes really triggers people, and then it's going to reflect back on you. And that's a hard thing to take on, and it might happen.
But that's the whole thing. It always comes back to us. Like it all comes back to us, even in relationship, relating to others. The part we play, how we show up, and even how we relate to ourselves, it comes back to us.
Yeah. That's all you have the control of.
I know. I know. And the thing about a lot of this stuff is it's so funny because it sounds annoying. You know what I mean? Like it's when you have the experience of it and you really practice it and you really give yourself like just try it out, play with it. You don't have to take our word for it. Like really, next time you're engaging in one of your relationships and the person is working your nerves, give yourself an opportunity to not react or to match them in ego or not to go into battle of the egos. See if you can give yourself like, how can I respond from like a higher aspect of myself? How can I respond from this like more lovingly and not having to prove or win type of thing? And just notice, just try it and report back. Tell us how it goes.
Yes, please. We're not telling anybody what to do. We're sharing experiences of what we have learned from deep observation of self and situations and the application of these experiments, if you will.
Yeah, and it's not easy. And just like we said, if you weren't here in the beginning, I was joking that every topic that we choose throughout this process, it's like that thing blows up in my face, right? So like this week we did relationships, so it's like everything about relationship was amplified for me. So I had so many opportunities to practice exactly what I'm telling you guys. So listen, I'm not saying like, oh, you do it. I'm not gonna.
Oh yeah.
No, I'm telling you, because it really works. It's really helpful.
It is. Yeah. And it's a mindfulness to what's going on, and a mindfulness of our own behavior.
Mm-hmm. Our own behavior, our points of view, but even, I mean, coming back to like how it affects us physically, you know what I mean? Like we talk about the mind, body, energy thing.
Yeah.
A lot of what comes up for us in relationship, the emotion that comes up in relationship, that can take a toll on us physically if
Hmm.
we just let it go haywire.
Totally. And I know that. I have proved it to my own self plenty of times over and over again. But if you haven't experienced it yourself, think about how, like, when you get so angry about something and like all of that emotion is inside your body and it's just bottling up, and then you eventually just like cry and let loose. I'm sure everybody's had at least one experience of that. The
Yeah.
relief you get from crying, or the aftermath of what that is, where you're just like exhausted, but like you feel better because that stuff, that energy that's inside you welling up, isn't there anymore.
Yeah. It's totally like a cleansing.
So
I
think
had
about
one
if
of
you keep
those.
that in. If you keep
Right.
that in, it's going to wreak havoc on your physical body. It gets
Honey.
your cortisol levels all up. It gets your adrenaline all crazy. And you can't have those things in excess in your body. It will destroy your DNA.
And think of like
Nobody got
even
time
like
for
how
that.
sick you get. I mean, like even like on
Yeah.
a basic level, like we all know, like you get stressed, what happens? Your stomach gets upset, your back starts to hurt.
Yeah.
All of these physical, like your body will give you signals like, hello, something you need to, could you pay attention to what's going on upstairs? What are
Yeah.
you thinking? How are you perceiving things? What emotions are you stuffing and not letting out? Let it out. Speaking of which, remember
Yeah.
that we were talking about something a couple weeks ago, and I asked you if you've ever been to a smash house.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
I
Did you
saw on
find one?
TV. No, but on TV, I told you my non-guilty pleasures, the Housewives.
Yeah.
One of the franchises a couple weeks ago, they went to one, and I was like, "See, they do exist."
Yeah, they
I'm
did
gonna,
have one here in San Diego, but they shut
yeah,
it down. There's an axe throwing place in my neighborhood now.
that doesn't sound safe.
No, it doesn't sound safe at all. My friend texted me. She's like, "We're having a few drinks, and now we're gonna go axe throwing." I'm like, "That sounds like a bad, really bad order of operations," but it was funny.
Wait, we have a comment. My friend,
Oh yeah.
her partner passed away not that long
Oh,
ago.
I'm so
And
sorry.
she said this morning I couldn't even go to work. Yeah, honey. I mean, like, I
Oh,
can't even imagine. And I
yeah.
mean, it is, again, like really important to allow yourself to process and not pretend you're okay if you're not feeling okay. Or, I
Hmm.
think a lot of people put pressure on themselves to do
Safe
that.
face.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, just like stuff it and like stay strong and keep going. And they end up imploding because
Yeah.
what the we feel like
Yeah.
shit, honey. You
Think
can
of your
get on the plane
emotions.
and come out here with me, and we'll work.
Yeah, do that. Do that.
Mm-hmm.
Think of emotions like a toddler, if they're not if they're not
Given
they like
attention.
given attention, yeah, they like when they're in the time of wanting that, they're gonna like stir it up until like it reaches a fever pitch. And if you don't give them the attention, they're going to throw a fucking tantrum. It's
Yeah,
Facebook Live. It's so hard not to swear. Um and rightfully so, because they were looking for attention. And um yeah, I think you have to work through those emotions, and you have to give yourself that and start to truly understand what your emotions are, because there is a grieving period, and there is an understanding that has to go with the emotions that come with this stuff, and society wants to give us these labels and this criteria of where we should be at. And
like
um
5 seconds of bereavement.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
or like what, 2 days? I think my last job gave me 2 days of bereavement, and I was like, really? 2 days? I'm supposed to be over it in 2 days? Like, that's interesting. Luckily, I didn't have to use it, but when I found that out, I was like, huh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Um, but and
Well,
also too, like in those situations, dealing with emotions is really hard. Reach out to somebody. I
yeah.
think we tend not to do that, and that's a real downfall. We are connected. We're here to help each other.
Totally. So she said, it's so true. Wait, I can't see her entire comment. Let me see if I can do it on here. She said, it's so true because I thought I was doing good for a while and then boom, it's like a kick in the face. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's the thing with like, especially grief and, all types of emotions. And we talk about this a lot because we do, like, we'll have a good moment, right? Like we feel like, okay, I've cried, I've processed, I've moved some stuff, and now I'm okay and I'm moving. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden here comes another wave of it, or
Mm-hmm.
something triggers it, or something reminds us, and then we're like back into feeling. But I think, again, it's one of those things we beat ourselves up as if that's not supposed to happen, but that's
Yeah.
part of our healing process.
Right. That's the
You
natural tendency.
Yes. I mean, you have so many memories, you have so many feelings, you have so many connections to all of these people you love in your life. Of course, you're going to have like waves of, it's just, it's how we function, and don't feel bad about that. But I got
Yeah,
to really
no.
take it down because it's my friend. So I'm starting to get real like, ooh, like
Breathe.
nobody better tell her she can't grieve. Okay. We gotta, honey.
Oh my God, I love this. Yes, it's
Like
your
real
turn on
protective, like, honey, you do what you need to do.
Facebook. And then you give me that person's address and I'm gonna find them.
Yeah. Okay. Like, seriously. She said, now I feel better that I cried for hours. Yes. Isn't that
Good, yeah.
the
It's
craziest thing, like,
refreshing.
how cleansing that can be? Even though you feel like puffy eyed, you feel like you got punched in the face sometimes when you cry. But
Yeah.
on the other side, it's just like you let the emotion move. Exactly what we're saying. You're not trying to repress it, stuff it, ignore it, pretend it's not there. Let
Yeah.
it move.
It was interesting. I guess we've moved on to the topic of emotion. Check me out. Still sitting with the changing course. I'm okay.
Hey.
It's making me think of, I watched a movie recently that really triggered something in me. And I was like welling up a little bit and cried a little bit, but I could still feel that thing inside me that was like, this scene is triggering you because there's more to deal with about it, and
Yeah.
I didn't fully let it out. And I could feel that. I could feel the resistance of not fully like releasing the emotion that was related to that scene that was triggering me.
Mm-hmm.
So start to notice that too. Pay attention to your emotions and like how much of it have I given the attention to and have been able to release, and start to understand your own body's reaction to these things.
Yeah, and know that, certain things will come. Like, I think of, like, my grandma was everything to me. You hear me, like, honey, I love that lady more than anything or
What was
anyone
her
on
name?
planet Earth. Novella. And
Novella. That's right. I love that name. So beautiful.
so she passed away when I was 22, and at her funeral, like, I had tears coming out, but I wasn't like full blown crying. I was actually more thinking about all of like the good things about, like, I just was like thinking of like things that made me laugh and smile, and it wasn't intentional. It's just what I happened to be thinking about. Like,
Yeah.
I was just like reminiscing and just like, but I didn't have like this aching cry. It was years later. I'm talking like maybe like 10 years later, when I will never forget, I was sitting in my living room, and just out of nowhere, it was like I felt like I could smell her perfume. Like, it would just like went like right across my face,
Whoa.
and I broke down, like
Whew.
full blown, snotty nose, hysterical crying. 10 years later, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, it's my grandma. Like, I could cry about her in 15 more years. Like, who cares? Like, that's
Yeah.
when we, and I think that's the expectation too. Like, we grieve, like, oh, we're supposed to just, I mean, those connections don't go away, like,
No, they don't.
they don't. And I think it's just a matter of like allowing ourselves to like honor them, and be like, once we get to a space of that, like really allowing ourselves to like live into having that experience with such amazing people in our lives.
I think a component of this too is that there's a vulnerability that goes into being able to share that experience of grief. And
Mm-hmm.
I think society shuts it down, and it's like, just, you only get 2 days of bereavement because it forces people to be vulnerable, and people don't like to be vulnerable,
Right.
So it's almost as if it's not accepted, or there's a time limit where it's accepted. And then we start to stifle those emotions more because we're like, well, I'm being told that this isn't right, and I'm overly sensitive or overly emotional, and we don't accept that of ourselves. But
Mm-hmm.
really, I think that construct was created in response of people seeing it and being like, oh no, I don't want to do that, And so then it kind of, like we said, it passes that energy down generationally.
Yeah, well, I think too. I mean, like with the bereavement thing here, I mean, I think because Americans are workaholics. Like, let's just be real. We
The
get
worst.
I mean, other countries they're getting like weeks vacation, like all kinds of stuff. They get like,
6 weeks
yeah,
mandatory.
and yeah. So
Mandatory.
exactly. I think that
We're
that's
the
part
worst.
of it. But even culturally too. I mean, how did we end up on the grief? This one. Wait, she said fat back. Oh my God, I'm gonna cry more. Sorry. Wait, I love her.
Don't be
I love her
sorry.
so much. Yes, no, I love her so much. But uh, our culture. So, like different cultures also look at. I mean, death is looked at differently all around the world, and
Yeah.
some cultures it's something that they celebrate, and some people they do acknowledge the like the death for like weeks on end. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like even that, it comes to a lot of what we've spoken about in the last few months is like how we personally perceive things and how we personally like what we do with our own emotions and feelings about it. And regardless of what society says or anyone else tells us, what feels right and true to you?
Mm-hmm.
Like what is coming up for you and what do you feel about that? And how does it feel good to you to process? Like it might be running,
Right.
jogging, journaling, it might be crying, but there is no right way. And
And
like
you have permission to do it.
we have to pay more attention to ourselves and what actually nurtures our own spirits. That's one thing for sure.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I love that, nurturing
Nurture
our own
your
spirit.
spirit. Yeah, maybe that's our message for to wrap up the relationship talk. Nurture your own spirit.
Yeah.
It was so
Scene.
nice to see y'all. And good night. No, but so yeah, so that's the end of our relationship talk. Joe, so sorry we missed you.
Oh
I
yeah.
want to
Sorry
say
I missed
hi
you,
to
Joe.
our other patrons as well, Brittany and Wendy and
Yeah. Hi.
yeah. So next week, Tiffany and I will be changing topics. Did you
Yeah.
want to tell them what we're going into?
We're doing law of attraction. And if you think this is going to be fun and you're going to manifest all of your dreams, you
You're
got another
wrong.
thing coming. Yeah. We're putting you through a boot camp of understanding how it actually works.
Bum, bum, bum. Yeah, and I think actually, I just want to put this out there now so I don't forget and you guys can hold me to it. I think it'll be fun for us to even play with some of the things we talk about next week and see what happens. Let's make this experiential.
Hell yeah.
So we hope that you join us. Our next talk will be next Wednesday, but anything that comes up for you around this, any questions, anything you want to share,
Yeah.
always just put it on the Facebook page. We always respond and we
Let us have it.
yeah. I mean, every way, up, down,
We're
left,
not
right.
censoring and you don't have to censor.
Not at
So
all.
give
Not
us your
at
all.
all.
We want it.
Yeah. And we love having this time and space to just chit chat with you all. So just like last time, the reason we're talking about law of attraction is because it was suggested. So if you guys ever have anything where you're like, let's talk about this topic, let's go in on whatever, let us know. Put it in the comments and we'll put it in the roster of things to talk about in the Mind Body Energy Project.
That's right. We do have a roster.
Roster. You ready, babes?
I'm ready.
We out of here?
We're out of here. Thank you
Bye,
for joining us.
everyone.
Bye.